Hey, this is Brendan from Comic Con. Today I'm going to be talking with Jim Rugg, who is a creator who's part of a new concept called Power Pulp Collective. The tagline is visually charged, creator owned, collectively driven, no sellouts. They also say we're louder, weirder, and more creator owned than ever. So, Jim Rugg, good morning. How are you today?
I'm good, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So some of the titles that you have, I went to the website. It's a very interesting website. Some of the titles I saw on there of yours are Alien Disclosure, For Adults Only, 1986, Conspiracy Comics, Super Mag, BW Zine. There's lots of really cool stuff looking on the website. But one of the things that is interesting to me about this is there is no publisher per se. It's like it's all creators getting together, and instead of profit sharing, everybody owns their own IP and they own their own profits. So 100% of the profits that come out of this go to the creators. And that sounds really, really cool. The titles look great. Some of your covers, I was just saying a minute ago, remind me of the like 80s zines. They're taking me back to like elementary and junior high. But tell me, what is this? I'm a little confused, but I'm very, very interested about what's going on here.
So it is a bunch of self-publishers who have banded together for, kind of the benefits that you might get from a publisher. We are still publishing our work ourselves. We still own all of the work ourselves. But in comics, you find, you need to be a bigger publisher if you want to get wider distribution. It takes a long time to make comics. So by working together, there's constantly new comics that people in the collective are bringing out. It's important just to generate interest, to have new content coming out that way. But there are a lot of, challenges to being a self-publisher. It's hard enough to make comics to begin with, just writing a good story, creating good art. Then we are tasked with actually producing the book, as self-publishers and going out and finding printers that can do what we want to do. If you go through the Power Pulp comic lineup, you'll find books that are all different sizes. Some are in color, some are in black and white. And again, this is reflective of that self-publishing nature. We have these tools now. We have access to printers all over the world. We have access to the internet to be able to like put our work up online to compete and to create books that are on a quality level with any publisher out there. Some of those challenges, though, is how do you actually get the books then once they're finished and you're happy with it? How do you get those into stores and get them in front of people? And
Mhm.
hopefully that's what Power Pulp is going to do by combining our forces on that front, whether it's helping each other with promotion. But the big thing is distribution. And, that's been a hot topic in comics a lot this year with Diamond going out of business. And that's always been a challenge for self-publishers. But now more than ever, it's sort of what is the future of comics distribution? And so by pooling our resources, we hope to make it easy for comic book stores to try new books, to try new creators, to find them all in one central location. So that's probably the biggest thing that attracted me to Power Pulp. And that is the ability to have all of our books in one location. So if a comic book store wants to try something new, maybe, losing Diamond has cleared some space on their shelves.
Mhm.
Hopefully, Power Pulp will give them a very attractive and easy to use interface to find some new creators, some new titles, some new characters to populate their stores with.
Well, that all sounds very cool, and you hit on some stuff there that I'd like to like touch on just a little bit more. So Diamond is still causing problems for people and things like that, and there's a lot of publishers that are going to Penguin and different distributors there. Who are you going to be distributing through with PowerPulp?
As of now, we are distributing through ourselves. If a retailer is hearing this and they're interested in Power Pulp Comics, they can go to our website, powerpulpcomics.com, and they can
Mm.
order directly from us. Like I said, the books are warehoused in a central location. So, you can order books from me, from James Coates, Chris Anderson, whoever you want to order from. It's all one box, one bundle. We offer a 50% discount to retailers. And if
Mm.
they order $200, we offer free shipping to the retailers.
Mm. Okay, so if somebody wants to pull one of these books, they go to the PowerPulp website and they tell their local comic shop, "Hey, I would like what is it, BW from BW Zine from Jim Rugg." They would be able to tell the local shop like to go to PowerPulp and do the orders there, and then they get a 50% off. So the local shop still gets a healthy markup on that. They get 100%
Absolutely.
profit. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the creator gets the other. That's it's such a great like concept that you guys have. And then I mean, there's so many things that are on here that are on the press release that I'm laughing so hard at because it's things that we talk about a lot on this side of comics. and that I don't think gets forward facing a lot, but it says no skimming, no IP hoarding, no corporate machine, just fiercely original work backed by a system that respects the source. And we always talk about credit, we always talk about compensation, and it looks like you guys are very much aimed at, well, I mean, obviously you guys are aimed at your own self-interest there, getting the credit and compensation that you deserve, but as a collective it looks like that's very much in the front of what you're doing.
Yes, 100%. And again, I've been self-publishing now for I started self-publishing. I've been making comics 25 years. I started as a
Mhm.
self-publisher. I've worked with, a number of publishers, Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, um, all over the place. And I've returned to self-publishing because honestly, it allows me to do whatever I want. And to your point, I don't have to worry about sharing the IP with a publisher,
Mhm.
which is often the case if they don't outright own it,
Right.
or making any concessions editorially. And, I'm not paying for an office space full of employees that have benefits. And honestly, you need to sell a lot more books if you're going to
Mhm.
divide up the pie that many ways. So self-publishing, there's advantages to being a smaller operation or an individual. And that goes from, being able to sell 1,000 books and having it be very profitable to being able to make the kind of books and comics that I want to make without having to conform to some board of employees above me that are deciding what
Mhm.
they think is commercially viable and what isn't.
Right, and commercially viable is not necessarily the books that I'm looking for. When I'm looking for a book to review, I'm looking for stuff that interests me because I'm gonna have a better perspective on what I'm telling the people who are reading the review or viewing the video or whatever. If I don't have a connection to that book, it means I mean, Marvel pumps out so much stuff, it's impossible for me to keep track of. We've got people that do X-Men exclusively, and we've got people that do, but I'm looking more for like this weird indie stuff, and I love that it's all available in one spot. I'm looking at, some of these covers, some of these titles, 21st Century of Big Spider, Ape Men of the Apocalypse, The Baboon, Chaotic Neutral, Dino Beast, Future Galacto Pit Fighter. Like all of this stuff really speaks to like my golden age of comics was, a seventh, eighth grade. And it was a bunch of just this weird stuff on the shelf. And everything about this, I don't know if it's intentionally retro or if this is just where indie's at right now, but you guys have some great titles looking.
Yeah, I think this whole lineup is very fun, and because it's creator owned, it can go in a lot of directions. It's not
Mhm.
we're not trying to fit into doing genre work or doing memoirs or doing any particular one type of comic, which is again one of the strengths I think whenever you combine a bunch of creators. One of my favorite parts about comics as a visual storytelling medium is that one person can do it, and that's really rare. I love movies. I love some of the big Marvel DC books that teams are working on, but anytime you have multiple people collaborating, it's going to be harder to have that one person's vision, that unique, like I want
Mhm.
to see inside somebody's brain, what they're thinking, what they're making, something that I wouldn't think of myself. And I think that's one of the great strengths of comic books, and self-publishing is a way to really tap into that, where one person can do whatever kind of book they want. And yes, scroll through Power Pulp Comics and see just how many different books are on there. You named quite a few. Some of the books that really stand out to me, there's a Matt King does a book called Tales to Enlighten, which I'm
Mhm.
not even positive the best way to describe it. It's sort of new wave. It's sci-fi in a way, but also fantasy. The description is Satan's grandson and a reluctant killer robot murder their way across the multiverse in an effort to reach enlightenment. But one of the side projects that he makes is a zine series called Psychometrics, which has to do with all the research that he does for Tales to Enlighten. And then he makes a zine where you get to see these weird old ads that feature, cult books and UFO stuff and weird religious things from like the 70s and magazines. And I love that kind of, I don't know, unique, strange. This is material that I find very interesting to read, but have no entry point. I don't have a collection of
Mhm.
these old magazines. I'm not doing research into this area. But for someone else to do it and then for me to be able to read that, that's really exciting for me. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So a lot of these books, not just mine, but a lot of these other books are also books that I happen to enjoy and like. And it's nice to be a part of something like that.
Nice. One of the things that you said is that's interesting to me too is that one person can make a comic, and it's true. And the thing is that as a writer, you have so much trust in the artist and so much trust in the letterer and so much trust in the colorist to bring your vision to the screen. But also, if you're doing it start to finish by yourself, there's no surprises. Like, there are some great books that had terrible press because, somebody slipped something into the art that was religiously charged, or, there's something in the script that these couple of lines together call back to something that, so I think it's really cool that from start to finish, you're in charge. But also, as you said, how many fights do you see that are coming off of movie sets or whatever, where the producer and the writer and the director can't get along, and all of a sudden this thing's dead in the water?
It's exactly true. Everybody has their own idea of, what makes this scene good, or what should
Mhm.
the color palette be, or, whatever these pieces are. And sometimes that works wonderfully. Sometimes there's a real dynamic between different creators and different ideas in the same room or in the same story. But there's something to be said about, like, hey, this is really somebody's, if Tony Farrow doesn't make 20th century big spider comics, nobody does. That
Mhm.
that idea, that story, those characters do not exist unless he makes them. And there's something special about that.
So one of the things too is we're talking about how great this is for creators. It sounds like it's great for readers and for local shops as well. But how do creators get in on this gig? Like, is there a vetting process? Is there an application? Like, is there a specific criteria that you're looking for the stories that belong in this group?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think more people are making comics now than have ever made comics in the past, and
Mhm.
so it can be overwhelming. Everybody. I think it's safe to say, and I don't like to speak for other people, but I think it's safe to
Sure,
say
sure.
everybody at Power Pulp loves
Well,
comics.
they did nominate you as their spokesperson today, so we're going to take your word for it.
Fair enough. So, we're all constantly reading comics and looking at comics, and we're doing comic shows where we're finding, other independent creators and their work. So we bring that to the group. Some people send us stuff. We look at those things, we share them, and we vote on it. We can
Okay.
only kind of function at a certain size. The worst thing that could happen is that we take on too much and then we don't do the job well. It's important to us that if stores are ordering books, they're getting those books in good condition and in a timely fashion. And as such, we're kind of growing slowly. It is a very different business model than exists. I don't know of another group like this that I could point to and say, oh, this is how to do it as a collective. So we're kind of learning as we go, but also trying to bring in members. When a new book catches our eye or a new creator catches our eye, we vote on it. And slowly but surely, we are adding more and more people to the group. I was not an original member. It was something that I saw. I admired what they were doing. I knew many of the cartoonists and liked many of
Mhm.
those books. And I basically applied the same way a lot of other cartoonists are applying. And it's just a matter of building this model into something successful and then continuing to grow that.
I mean, when the books come from the printer, somebody has to take the orders and pack them up and ship them to the local shops. So, who's doing the physical work?
So that is James and John Coates,
Mm.
also creators of very good books. Dino Beast is one of their titles. James has a book right now on Kickstarter, Galaxy Gods, which is kind of a Kirby homage. He's a fantastic artist. And we ship our books to them. They warehouse the books and they pack and ship the orders out. Part of the way the collective works is that everybody is contributing something to the collective. So that could be PR, that could be building a website, building catalogs that we send out to stores, doing
Mm.
outreach to stores. Everybody has kind of a role, because the profits are going back to the individual creators. We don't have a central employee per se that is handling this stuff. So the Coates brothers are the two that are actually putting the physical books into boxes.
Nice. So, I mean, you answered my question. I was sitting there going, like, if 100% of profits are going out, who's paying the salaries of the people who are packing the stuff up? But it's like, okay, so you've got people who are good at PR. That's Melissa, sounds like, right? And then you've got the folks who are packing up the books, and okay, so everybody's kind of got their talents and their abilities and their time frames that they're able to work within. Because if you've got only 8 hours a week spare or something like that, you have to make it valuable to the rest of the group. That it sounds like everybody's just kind of pitching in to make stuff happen. That's really really cool, man.
It is. And comics, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier. Comics are very solitary. They take a long time. You sort of have your back to the world, your head down while you're drawing these things. It's nice to just be connected with other people who are experiencing the same thing that you can
Mhm.
hop on Discord with and talk to about this stuff. Sometimes whenever maybe you're not feeling great about what you're doing, it's a way to like pull some energy from these guys who are, just finishing a book and very excited, or, like your work and are happy to like proofread your book before you send it to the printer and stuff like that. So there's a lot of benefits besides the obvious, let's get the books in stores. There's also the benefit of iron sharpens iron, and, birds of
Mhm.
a feather flock together, and we can really pick each other's brains for information, knowledge, ideas on how to make our comics better, and also how to make our comics more widely seen.
Well, and it's very cool too because I just, I wanted to get the actual website to put out there. It's powerpulpcomics.com. Very, very straightforward. But I'm looking on here and it says, "Who are we?" And everybody's name is just listed on here, and it's got all of your contacts or whatever. So it's not even like you guys are exclusively, uh, you know, uh, holding this information or whatever. You can reach out to these creators directly about their projects that they're working on. Their own websites are on here. Like, you guys are not making this exclusive to anything, and that's also a very cool thing because it's like it's make hay while the sun shines. It's like find all of those avenues of revenue and exploit all of them, instead of the whole thing that publishers do where it's like, no, this is our thing that we put an investment into, we own this, you do your own thing on your time. It's like everything is kind of together. You can find all of the resources in one place here.
Yeah, and that non-exclusivity is huge for me. I would not be a part of this if it required being exclusive. I don't believe in that. I think that's a remnant of a false sense of scarcity that is not
Hmm.
true. And you go back, I've been reading comics for a long time and following comics and wanting to make comics into the 90s, whenever there were self-publishers and there were 18 or 19 distributors, and you could
Hmm.
distribute with all of them. And if you were a self-publisher back then, you think of like the Spirits of Independence in the 90s with people like Jeff Smith at Bone, and Steve Bissette doing Tyrant, and Paul Pope doing THB. They were able to make a living self-publishing because they were able to access a lot of stores through all of these different distributors. And then in the mid 90s, distribution goes into very exclusive deals, right? Marvel signs with Heroes
Hmm.
World or whatever. I think DC went with Diamond. And very quickly, those other distributors fell away. They went out of business because they couldn't carry, a lot of the big popular books. I don't see what benefit that has to anybody except possibly, you know,
Diamond.
yeah, really. And look where that has gotten us, where that has
Right.
led. So,
Right.
that non-exclusive thing is huge. And it also is a benefit both to, I hope, retailers and readers. You mentioned, hey, how does somebody get one of our books? I hope they go to their store and say, "Hey, you can order, please order some of these comics for me."
Hmm.
But a lot of people don't have a comic book store anywhere. I grew up and had no comic book store, until I got a driver's license. I was stuck at like the one newsstand in my town.
Hmm.
So, you can be an individual and come to powerpulpcomics.com and order books for yourself. It doesn't have to be through a store. Again, with this non-exclusive idea, I always just want comics to be available for everybody wherever it makes sense for them, whatever is most convenient for them. I want to make it easy for people to find my comics and be able to read them. And I think that Power Pulp Comics is really, they're set up in the same exact way. Like, part of the reason I'm excited to be with them is because they seem to share these same values.
Well, that's very cool. And accessibility is huge. We have one of our reviewers and our TTRPG guy is in a wheelchair, and it's hard for him to get to comic book stores. It's hard for him to get into comic book stores because a lot of them are not ADA accessible. So he's been using, we get review PDFs from some publishers. We don't get them from all publishers, but he's been using, like TFAW. Well, TFAW just went under. And it's like, okay, well, now he's ordering from Midtown or whatever. And just being able to, when you're geographically not near a comic store, or when you're not able to get to the comic store because kids don't always have access to transportation or whatever, or if it's an accessibility issue, it's really great that you can just go and order, I want these 5 titles, instead of having an order minimum or a shipping minimum, or those kind of things attached to the to getting the comics in your hands actually.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When I was a kid, you could get comics all over the place in the
Hmm.
drugstore, in gas stations, and I miss that a lot. But I do think you can get comics a lot of places now too. Like, we can access a lot of these comics from our phones, from our tablets and computers. And, hopefully we are going to figure out this distribution things in terms of making it as easy as possible for anybody that wants comics to find them. And they're out there. I think we just need to do the best job we can of promoting them and letting people know where they are. I was just at a kind of a creative summit earlier this week, and I was asking the other comic artists that were there where they buy comics, and they're kind of from all
Hmm.
over the country. And we end up talking about like Hoopla and Libby, library apps for anybody that
Yeah.
maybe is unfamiliar with those. And, as you talk to people about where they find the comics that they love, you realize It is different than it was when I was a kid, but there are a lot of alternative places now to find comics. If you are a fan or if you've seen something and you're interested to see more, I think those things are out there, and we just need to do a better job as an industry of letting everybody know how easy it is to find comics and where they can find those comics.
That's about the time that we have for today. This has been Jim Rugg. The website is powerpulpcomics.com. You can go there directly. You can also talk to your local shop. Again, local shops get a 50% discount off of the cover price, so they're going to get 100% markup, and they get a shipping break at $200. So if they order enough of the comics, then they get free shipping, they get their markup, you get your comics, and you get to see these creators who are in the collective succeed because the comics are getting out to more shops. So do mention it to your local shop. Do tell them that you want it. Do some pre-orders. And if your local shop is not able to get them or doesn't want to order them from the site, you can get them directly from the site yourself. Jim, you were the perfect guest. Thank you very much. They picked the right guy as their mouthpiece today. Thank you very much for your time. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
No, that's all. But thank you very much, Brandon. I really appreciate this. I do believe in trying to spread the word on comics as much as possible. So I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you giving us some time here.
Absolutely. It's a great idea. And I'm looking forward to exploring a lot of these titles. Because, like I said, I went there to the website and I was just like, wow, wow, wow. Because there's so many things that I remember from childhood. And I've never been a Capes guy. I've never been, the X-Men or anything like that. I really just like the weird stuff. And it looks like you guys have plenty of that. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this catalog. Thank you again for your time this morning. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.